Hello, in this video I'm going to be talking about getting your SVG on the page in a way that you'll be able to use it for interactive. It's a little bit different than what we've done in class. They've changed some of the security protocols in the browsers, so we had to do this a little bit differently, and that's okay. So I just created a new HTML and saved it onto my computer. I'm going to title it Interactive SVG. Now for this particular one, I'm going to set it up for Bootstrap. We didn't do this in class, but it is going to be required on the assignment, so I will show you that way in this tutorial. So as we've done all year, we need to link to the three different libraries, the CSS, the JS, and the Bootstrap. Again, you can get all of those from W3 School. And then the only other part I need is the meta tag so that I am properly able to tell what size, or my page is able to tell what size device the user is using. So I'm going to include that as well. Let's make that a bit bigger. So I've got my libraries, I've got my viewport. Now I'm going to prep some divs on my page. So in this case, I'm going to have a container that's going to hold all the elements on the page. And then within that, I'm going to have a row and two columns. So I'm going to have a div with the class container. Again, this is a fixed size container. So if you wanted to go full screen on it, like full width, you would want to do container fluid. Then I need a row. So I need another div with the class of row. So this tells my code or my page that I need to have a row, and within that I'm going to have two columns. Now for this particular page, I think I'm going to go 2 half-width columns, so 6 columns wide each, so that they're sitting side by side. So I'll have my SVG on one side and then my content on that is going to be changing on the other side. Now this is just an example, so for your assignment you'll be able to do that however you want. I'm also going to have it collapsing down at the phone size, so small size. So call small 6 is the class that I want to use, and then I'm going to have another one of those, so you could copy and paste if you wanted. Okay, so this is going to be where my SVG will go. And this is going to be where, maybe I'll just say, look here for more information. So this is going to be the div that the content changes regularly on. So we know if we're going to change or manipulate these divs at all, they need to have IDs, because I need to be able to individually target those particular ones. So I'm going to go back and add an ID here. I'll just call it My Svg. Doesn't matter what it's called as long as it's something unique. And then I'm going to add a second one called Info, because this is my info box that I'm going to change information in. So when I click on an element in my SVG, the new content is going to go here. So if I preview this in the browser, yes, save it. Right now I just have these two divs side by side. You know, it probably would look better if I had some sort of heading on here. So I'm just, for now, just going to put an H1. I can always go back and pretty this up later. So, you know, normally when you're doing this, you probably want to put all of these things inside of containers and rows and columns. So I'm going to have a class of row. Inside of that, because I only have the one content, I'm going to just do a 12 column div. Now you'll notice I didn't put a device size on this one, and that's simply because it's 12 columns, it's already full width, it doesn't need to collapse at any size. So I could have that inside of there. I'll just do some extra line returns just to make it a little easier to read. What I may choose to do as well is maybe on this row I also do a text center to make that center on the page, or whatever, right? So then I've got my stuff on a page here. Now it kind of looks off center because we're not seeing the whole width of this other column. That'll change once we start filling in information. Okay, so now to actually get our SVG on the page. Now in the past, in your web graphics assignment, we've put SVGs on a page. I'm just going to hit enter a couple times. Just with the image tag, right? img src, and then link to the SVG. Now that way you can't get inside of it and make different parts interactable. So we're not going to do it this way. What we are going to do is load our SVG with jQuery into this particular div. I'm just going to put that all on one line again. You can leave the text there if you want. I'm just going to clean that up a little bit. So at the bottom of my page, or in an external jQuery file or a JavaScript file, I'm going to put my code. So when I'm doing it on the page itself, I need to use those script tags. In my external JavaScript file, I wouldn't need to. So when I'm doing jQuery, the first thing I want to do is my document ready. So I'm going to do $document .ready, and then it's a method, so it's bracket, bracket, semicolon. This is, again, just says wait until the whole page is loaded before you trigger any kind of code. So within those two parentheses, I'm going to add function, bracket, bracket, curly brackets. And then all my code goes within these two curly brackets. So I'll just hit enter there. So the first thing I need to do is load my SVG onto the page. So I want to target that My Svg div and then use the load method. So in the past, we've mainly used the load method just for HTML files. Now we're going to use it for an SVG. So I do my $ bracket quotes as normal, and I'm going to target that My Svg div, and I'm going to say .load. And then within these brackets, I'm going to tell it which thing to load. So in my case, if I just open up my folder here, my file is called bones.svg. So here in quotes, they're just all sitting beside each other, so I don't need to put a folder name. Of course, if you did have a folder there, then you would need to put that. So I'm just going bones.svg. So if I save that and open up my page, sorry, the correct file is newbones.svg. And if I hover over it, I can see that that little icon pops up with my picture. Now, when I look at it on the actual page, right now, it's gigantic. That's much too big for me to manipulate or to even see on the page. So what I'm going to do is add a callback function that specifies the maximum height this thing can get. So to do that, I'm going to put my cursor right after the quote, but still inside of the bracket, and add a callback function. So this is where I go comma, function, bracket, bracket, curly bracket. So this function only runs after this SVG is loaded. That way I know that it's on the page already before I manipulate it. So what I have to do now is kind of drill down to the SVG inside of this div. So that's the pointer I have to do. So it's hashtag My Svg, because that's the div's name, space SVG. So what we're saying is find the SVG inside of that div. And we're going to change the CSS of it. So we're going to change the maximum height, but in CSS form. So .css bracket bracket semicolon. Then between those two parentheses, I'm going to say the property I want to change is max height. And I'm going to set it to, now I'm just picking a number there, 450 pixels. So now when I check it out on my page, I can see, okay, it's there, but it's not as big. Reason being, my particular SVG is really tall and narrow, and SVGs are responsive. So it's getting as wide as possible to fill that whole Bootstrap div. So by limiting the height, I am able to just target specific elements on there. The next thing I'm going to do is show you how to do the rollovers themselves. Okay, watch that in the next video.